Viewer discretion is advised. The following film contains strong language by a disabled Navy veteran, police violence and civil rights violations by a 17-year veteran of the San Diego Sheriff's Department, followed by an excessive force arrest under exaggerated charges, leading to false imprisonment, finally resulting in cruel and unusual punishment. Don't try this at home without going live. Felony for filming, starring Sergeant Munsch as the 17-year veteran of the San Diego Sheriff's Department. At 9:47 p.m., a sheriff's call for service was received on the CopWatch app for an unknown trouble at the 1000 block of Fern Avenue. I arrived on scene approximately 5 minutes later and made my approach from the west, walking in this direction. And this is where the video starts.
Back away, sir.
I didn't see any tape.
Back away from here, sir.
Boy, get back or you're going to get arrested on 128, alright?
Do you have any tape up?
Do
you have any tape up?
Get back on the other side of the truck right now.
What's your name,
Listen
Sergeant?
to what I'm saying.
I'm listening to you,
Sergeant Munsch.
Don't push me.
I'm
Don't
not
push
pushing
me.
you. Get
Why-
back.
Don't
or
push
I'll
me
arrest you.
again.
Do you understand?
Do not push me again. Do you understand?
Stay on the other side.
This is where I'm going to be until you put up.
I will arrest you.
Until you put up a tape, I'll be here.
Listen to what I'm saying.
You put up tape. You got 10 feet. That's what the appellate court
there's
says.
no such thing.
Well, there's an
You
appellate
stand
court
back there,
decision
you
that you will
find
see.
out. You will be
That you will see
Stay back
if you
there.
violate
I'm
my
giving you a
civil
lawful
rights.
order.
Don't
Do not
violate
go
my
any
civil
further.
rights. Just keep walking. Walk away.
Did you understand what I said?
Do not violate my civil rights.
Did you understand what I
Do
said?
you understand what I said?
Do you know what I'm saying to you?
Do you know what I'm saying
giving
to
a
you?
lawful- Back on the other side of the fire hydrant
you have-
right now.
do you have any
right
tape
now?
up?
Back
Do you have
up
any
on the
tape
other side of the fire
Yes.
hydrant. Back up on the other side of the fire
You just threw
hydrant.
my phone over here. Can I get it? Can I get my phone?
Get your phone and get on the other side of the fire hydrant. You just
And this is where the video stops. What you couldn't see was the sergeant slapping me hard enough to send my phone bouncing off a wall 15 feet away, landing broken in the dirt. After receiving permission to retrieve my phone, I told the sergeant I needed to see his supervisor because he broke my phone and he assaulted me, which he argued about while I made my way up the walkway to the sidewalk, fumbling with my camera gear and my phone, trying to put it back together. By the time I reached the sidewalk, he charged at me again, and he said, "That's it. You're done for the night." I backed away, trying to reason with him, until I bumped into a parked car. That's where he arrested me with excessive force by grabbing the back of my head and shoving it into the car and twisting my arm in a painful way while I tried to put my gear down. About that time, Deputy Flores ran up and took over handcuffing me. That's when the pain finally stopped. As Flores started walking me to his unit, Sergeant Munsch yelled to him to put me in his unit. That's when it finally hit me that I might die that night. I immediately stopped walking and got real serious with Flores. I implored him to protect me. I reminded him that California had a new law that required him to intervene when he sees excessive force. I told him the sergeant had just assaulted me and used excessive force to arrest me. He said he didn't see any of that, and that I'd be okay. And I told him that I didn't believe him, and that he would be responsible if something happened to me. And that's when I asked him if his body cam was on. At that point, Flores seemed to take me serious, and he did his best to assure me that I'd be okay. But I still made him look me in the eye and promised to watch my back. I felt all kinds of Stockholm Syndrome, just that fast, and it was really hard to break away from. Fear of impending death is a feeling I can only describe as desperate and vulnerable. After about an hour of sitting in the car watching them process the scene, Sergeant Slapsalot decided he was going to cop-splain the reason for his violent overreaction and brilliant de-escalation skills. He told me regular media would never come to the scene and talk to him like that. I told him that I'm sure he's noticed that regular media is dead and that we're the new craft-style media that he needs to get used to. You'll get to hear that entire conversation just as soon as we get their body cam footage. A few minutes later, the sergeant transported me silently to the station a couple of blocks away. Once I was there, I was chained by one arm to a bench in a 5-foot by 5-foot holding cell, left feeling like I would soon be on the ground in a puddle of blood. At least I was able to stand up, which is my usual daily position, due to my service-connected disabilities. After a while, the sergeant came in and read me my rights. Then he asked me if I wanted to talk about the charge, which he said was a 148 misdemeanor obstruction, which is typically a cite and release rather than book in jail type of charge. But after he left the station, Deputy Drivik presented a booking document for me to sign that had 148 scratched out and PC-69 written below it. PC-69 is obstruction by threat of violence, and it's considered a violent felony with a higher bail amount and a requirement to provide a DNA sample to be released from jail. When I protested the charge, he said the sergeant was gone and PC-69 was the charge. At this point, I realized out loud why he changed the charge to a felony. He was sentencing me to punishment by process. My conversation with Drivik became noticeably difficult for him when I asked him to recall what he had just heard his sergeant say. He said he didn't remember. He said he didn't hear. I asked him if that's how he fills out his police reports. This conversation is going to be interesting to hear on his body cam. Now Drivik felt really bad. So bad that he let me use his cell phone to call my family and let them know that I was headed downtown to Central Jail to be booked for a felony and that I'd need bail and an attorney. A few minutes later, Drivik transported me downtown, which is about 15 minutes from Imperial Beach, and we didn't say a word to each other. His last words to me after booking me were, "Don't let anyone have your booking number." I said, okay, good to know, thanks. Once in county jail, it didn't take long for me to start seeing reasons why San Diego County has the state's highest in-custody death rate. This was my first visit to jail, and I knew it wasn't going to be pleasant, but I really had no idea that it would be cruel, unusual, and inhumane. I want to talk about that for just a minute. Cruel and unusual punishment is prohibited by the 8th Amendment, which includes torture, deliberately degrading punishment, or punishment that is too severe for the crime committed. Okay, so let me ask you, is it cruel to tell someone they have the right to use the phone, but put them in a cell with 3 phones, but only one that works, and 12 other men, one of which is 6'5", big, drunk, and he won't get off the phone? Then when you do get a chance to use the phone, your booking number doesn't work as the required PIN to dial out, and the deputies tell you, just borrow someone else's booking number. Would you consider it unusual to allow your home toilet to become so full that you can't add any more to it? If so, would it be cruel if you were made to use the floor next to the toilet because it's too full? It was clear to me after 12 hours of that number 1, you can die at the hands of another for trying to use the phone. 2, fecal matter is airborne in San Diego Central Jail. 3, the release holding cell has no cameras, no place to relieve yourself, and they don't answer the intercom. So, if you're going to be delayed there alone for 3 hours, make sure you don't need any medical attention and keep yourself alive, because you're all you got. While inside, I had the displeasure of visiting 3 holding cells. 2 had a single working phone for 12 to 14 guys. The release cell had no phone. The second holding cell had the only working toilet. The other 2 didn't. From each of the cells, I noticed a group of 3 or 4 deputies would stop by and glare at me for a minute or so. The deputies appeared to take my picture. Anyway, I had enough of jail, so I posted a $20,000 bail to get out. Even though my bail was posted before 3 other guys, my release was delayed for 3 hours after them. About an hour after I was released, the sheriff left a return of property notice in my home postbox, even though I only gave him the address on my ID, which is my office address. But the notice was only for my herb pipe, not any of my camera gear, press pass, body cam, 2 cell phones, microphones. The next day, I went to retrieve my pipe. Subscribe and click the notification bell to get the alert about the return of property video. It's a hilarious surprise. Thanks for watching, and for listening to the end. One love.
Police at the